what does it mean to lead in more of a feminine style? And I'm not saying exclusively feminine. I'm saying, what are those feminine leadership qualities that you find that when they're brought to the foreground, they actually make an impact in the same way that I just said about our CEO from Eileen Fisher?
I mean, really it's about how connected you are to yourself, right? And how integrated. And how the better you can connect to yourself, the better you can connect to others. So, maybe a language to use in business is self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
How aware are you? We use emotional intelligence a lot because that's now safe, at least in the Bay Area, to use in business, right? And soon there'll be other things that are safe, Right. And that's, we have to be courageous, right? I mean, somebody said to me the other day, a senior male manager said to me, "You're too corporate to be hippie and too hippie to be corporate."
Right.
And I was thinking, should I defend? And then I was thinking, no, I'm going to be proud to be the corporate hippie. Because that's what the world needs, So, yeah.
There are lots of us out there.
I think Google has done an amazing job with the whole mindfulness movement, and they have this program called Search Inside Yourself. Maybe some of you are aware of that. And again, I love it. We actually partnered to bring a pilot program of that into LinkedIn, and I think it's really interesting because there is this feeling that if it's too touchy-feely, that it won't go over well with the employee base, and especially the engineers in Silicon Valley. So there's a whole component of this. Actually, Meng was the one who started it, and there's an engineering component and a scientific evidence that we can talk to our engineers about it so that they'll feel better about what we're trying to teach them around mindfulness. But I agree with you. It's about being self-aware and bringing that into the workplace. I think that one of the challenges around that, though, is that I think it's really they're interesting concepts, but trying to apply those on a day-to-day basis is a little challenging. I think we talked about that too. I mean, when you're working in such a hyper-growth, fast-paced environment, how do you find time to slow down a little bit and reflect on what's happening? And I know at LinkedIn we've tried to ask people to build buffers into their calendars so they're not always running from one meeting to the next, where they actually have time to actually sit back and think about what they're doing before they just schedule their calendar so full. And I think the whole mindfulness thing is around that too. How can you sit back and reflect and really be mindful about what you're doing and have mindful conversations and that. So I think it's happening. It's starting to happen slowly. It will take some time.
Yeah, I'll build on that. We are experimenting. I'm big on space lately. Same thing. Like, how do I create more white space in my calendar instead of having, the back-to-back meetings? And I think I will go so far as to say I think that is from an old world. Like, if you're busy and if you're back-to-back and we talked about even running from one meeting to the next, then you must be really successful and important. And I used to have an old mentor who used to say, is anybody dying? Because unless that's the case, we're all good. You can kind of go away for a day and be offline. And so just this whole idea of creating space and reflection time, I think, is so important, because you can't be self-aware if you don't create that space. And so we're experimenting. Actually, the engineering group started this, but we're experimenting with things like no meeting Thursdays. And more groups are starting to pick up on that. We picked up on that in our function, and we call it Space Day. So no meetings, just projects, and if you want to work at home that day, you can, but it gives people the time to kind of think and slow down and reflect and figure out kind of where they are. I think the other thing is, just from an organizational standpoint, we're starting to put in more kind of what we call retrospectives. So, instead of, just quickly doing your objectives every quarter, let's really think as a team and as individuals, what we did well, what we didn't do well, not just in terms of our objectives, but how we work together as a team. So it's an organizational practice that we're trying to really integrate in. And I think more of those kinds of things will help create that space to reflect and to be more self-aware and to kind of, become the leaders that we're
and be
wanting
more
to
connected
be,
too,
and be
it
more
sounds like.
connected to
Yeah.
ourselves and to
Yeah.
others.
I love the connection piece. That's one of the things that we've been doing a little bit more as well. One of the things that I started with our New York team was having everyone on the team share what their passion was. And then we did a team outing around that. So one person chose spin cycling. So we did that. Some people liked it, some people didn't. One person was really into making cupcakes. We did like a cupcake class. One person was really into open mic nights. We did that. That was a really interesting way to have people express themselves, like what matters to them. And what's amazing is that even if it's out of your comfort zone, like someone didn't want to go to Soul Cycle and do a spin class, but I think they appreciated the experience. They got to know their colleagues better. And that was just a fun way to get people to connect, which I think worked really well.